In a series that I've called At the Core of Joy, where we're exploring the core values of Community of Joy, our congregation. We're halfway through today. We have 8 core values here, and this is core value number 4, although they don't need to come in any particular order, except the first one is always first. And the first core value is what? Always Jesus, yes. And they're all 2 words, except this value. You notice there's a the. It's 3 words because I didn't think among broken sounded good. I thought among the broken. I thought it needed that the. And so, yeah, you can notice some of us in that picture. We have looked at open arms and beloved mess already. On your announcement sheet, there's a little notice, that a little blurb about each of the core values. They're also online. Core values are behaviors that we seek to be a natural part of who we are and what we do as a congregation. Core values define who we are becoming. We're not perfect. We simply seek to be authentic, and the core values guide us in that effort. So the question that I want to ask you today is similar to the question that I already asked you in the sharing time, and that is, how good are your eyes? On Friday, I decided that it was time to go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, you know, that dreaded place. And because at the end of this month, on my birthday, I have to have a new license. And so I thought, I'm not going to wait till the end of the month. I'm going to go to the middle of the month. I didn't go at lunchtime. I went at 11:35, and I thought, you know, that'll get me in and out before the lunchtime rush comes. And I was there 2 hours. Although the kind lady that waited on me, when I told her I was there for 2 hours already, she said, no, you've been there 1 hour and 32 minutes. Because after you check in at the desk where you check in, they give you a number, and then they start calculating how long you've been there. And so anyhow, but what she didn't get was the half hour it took me standing in line to get that number, you know. And so I told her, I said, no, I think you're wrong. I've been here 2 hours because this is the time I got here, and I had to wait to get the number. You see from when I get the number to when I get to you. And when she called my number, I went up to her and she said, I feel so sorry for you. I said, why? She said, well, I noticed you've been here a long time and nobody's calling your number. I said, yeah, I noticed that too. And I was just getting angry enough that I was about ready to go up to the desk and ask, what the heck's going on? Because all these people that they were calling had come in after me. I mean, 20 minutes after me, half an hour after me, an hour after me. And I'm like, this is crazy. Well, she said, you know what's happening now? And here's your tip. I posted about it Friday. Here's the tip. If you have to get your license renewed, or if you have to get a real ID is what it's called. And if you don't know about that, Google it, because even if you don't have to get your license renewed, if you haven't gotten one recently, you have to get a real ID. There's a new way that the government is insisting that we get our license. You have to have your birth certificate. If you don't have a birth certificate, you have to have a passport. It has to be good and not expired within 5 years. It can be expired, but it can't be more than 5 years expired. You have to have those. You have to have your Social Security card. Not number, card. You have to have 2 legitimate bills that have your name and address on them. And if you're married, and your birth certificate has your maiden name, which of course it would, and your name has changed, you have to have a marriage license or proof of why your name has changed. I'm just telling you, okay? So that has nothing to do with today's sermon. That's just a tip. I don't see Jesus. Well, so here's the thing. The people that work there need to see Jesus, so I'm telling you to be prepared. When you go, they see Jesus in you. Because I'm telling you, I was sitting there and they were calling appointment 515, appointment 900 and whatever. And my number was B30. And I'm thinking, I was starting to boil to the point that I was thinking, I'm not going to represent Jesus very well when I get up here to the desk. And this kind lady, she said, I'll probably get in trouble for calling your number, but you've been here long enough. And she said they are now starting to only take appointments. And so they're trying to discourage people like me who walk in wanting to get something done. I didn't know that. How do they communicate that? She said it should have been in the letter that you got. But who reads the letter? You know, it was a renewal. And I knew I did read that it said you can't do it online. You have to go in person. So I went in person. And anyhow, so that's your tip. One of the reasons I'm telling you this is that on my license last time, whenever I had it renewed, you have to take an eye exam, and I wear glasses. And so the person didn't ask me if I wanted to take the eye exam with or without my glasses. They just put on a restriction on my license because I have glasses. And so the kind lady said to me, she said, "Sir, would you like to take your vision test with or without your glasses?" So I'd like to take it without. She said, because you have a restriction on your license that means that you have to wear your glasses. And if you're caught driving without your glasses when you're pulled over, you can get a fine for not obeying the restriction. And I said, I really don't need my glasses for driving. You see, when I got to that age that my eyes were such that I needed glasses to read, I tried the cheaters. And I was always losing them. I didn't know where they were. They were never where I needed them when I needed them. And so I thought, I went to the eye doctor and he said, you're in need of some help. Why don't you try cheaters? I said, no, you know what? I've done that already before I came to you. I really want the transition lenses. I want you to put the corrective that I need, and I'll just wear glasses all the time. But I don't need them to drive. And so I took my glasses off and I passed the eye exam without glasses. And she said, isn't that cool? You don't have to have a restriction. I said, that's wonderful. And by the way, you don't leave there with a license that day either. Okay? They send it to you in the mail. You leave there with a piece of paper and they send the license to you later. So I got home and I was telling Sharon the story and how happy I was that I passed and I didn't have to have a restriction on my license. And she was telling me about this elderly lady that she knew, like me, who went a couple weeks early to get her license. And she had like 2 weeks before her birthday, before she had to have it renewed. She thought, I'll go get it taken care of. And I guess when you're a certain age, you have to take the driving part of the test again. Not the driving, but the questions about driving. And so she failed that part. And then she had also failed the vision part. And so when she failed both of those parts, the lady that was helping her kept her license. And the elderly lady was like, wait a minute. I got 2 weeks on this baby. I didn't have to come now. I still can drive. And the lady at the DMV said, I'm sorry. 1, you don't know how to drive, and 2, you can't see to drive, and so I can't let you walk out of here with a license. We figured this out. Serious. True story. And, who would want her to drive? I mean, I can see, and I backed into a cement pole the other day because of this dumb truck that was blocking the way where it shouldn't have been, and I saw the planter that the pole was protecting, but I didn't see the pole. So now I need a new bumper. And I can see fine. I just didn't see it in my mirror. But anyhow, it was a one-way alley. Anyhow, it's all good. My question to you this morning is, how good are your eyes? A little while ago, I asked you, where did you see Jesus this week? It's kind of the same thing. It is said of Jesus that he was a friend of sinners, that he was seen oftentimes with tax collectors and sinners, with people that grew up on the other side of the tracks, with people that were not of high repute. He was often seen hanging around people that were marginalized, people that were not respected in society of that day. In fact, if you read the Gospels, the parts of the Bible that tell about Jesus and share some of his teachings, you will see that Jesus was often found among the broken, the outcast, the marginalized, those who grew up on the other side of the tracks, the poor, the demon-possessed, the tormented, the sick, the dying. You see, so this core value, among the broken, is a reminder to us that because Jesus was found among the broken, so should we be found among the broken. But to do so, we must get our eyes checked. Where did you see Jesus this week? Did you see him everywhere? You can. You need to cultivate that ability. How good are your eyes? The passage that I chose to get at this core value that Pastor Sharon read earlier this morning, Matthew 25:31-46, it's a familiar passage to us. We like this passage. We often talk about it as doing it to the least of these out of this passage. It's a part of Jesus' teaching near the end of his life. It's an important teaching for us, but I think we often misunderstand it or spin it out in a way that's not as Jesus intended. Now hang with me. I'm gonna step on your toes. I'm stepping on my toes. I've understood this passage in this one way all my life, but there's a problem with understanding it in this way. And I'm going to talk about that this morning, and I'm going to push us to see it in a new light. It is a judgment scene. Jesus is describing a judgment scene. He's foretelling what is ahead for all of us. He says, and John records it in this way, Jesus is saying, when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. It's a judgment scene. You can't get around that. And then Jesus talks about those who are on his right and those who are on his left, the sheep and the goats. And I Googled some this week and looked at some sermons, and some sermons were titled, Are You a Sheep or Are You a Goat? Well, I think that misses the point in the same way that my understanding of this passage misses the point. And when Jesus is talking about this, there are several categories of people that he talks about. Did you notice who they are? The hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, the prisoner. He didn't talk about award winners and elite people and people of good repute. He's talking about the broken among us. And in so many ways, we're all broken. We talked about that last week. We live messy lives, but we're beloved. And because this is a judgment scene and it ends and they will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous will go into eternal life. That's how Jesus ends this. Because it's that judgment scene, it's very easy to make the statement that we will be judged on whether or not we have been found among the broken, whether or not we have clothed the naked, fed the hungry, given drink to the thirsty, visited the prisons, cared for the sick. We'll be judged based on what we have done. That's how I've spun it out. That's how I've always understood it, that we need to take care of the least of these. And if we don't, we'll be judged accordingly. But the problem with that understanding is does it leave space for grace? See, grace is unmerited favor. You can't earn it. The salvation that Jesus offers, it's not earnable. You can't earn it. You can't buy it. It's free. It's a gift. It's given to us. We can receive it, and then we can respond to it. You see, it would be real easy to understand this passage as Jesus saying that we will be judged based on how we live our lives and if we've been found among the broken. And if we have, we're in. And if we haven't, we're out. If we have, we're sheep. If we haven't, we're goats. But since we can't earn our salvation or eternal life, then how do you understand this passage? Well, I think it's all about the eyes. Notice, I don't know if you noticed when Pastor Sharon read it, that both those on the right and those on the left ask Jesus, when did we see you? Whatever. See, they have the same question. And both groups, the right and the left, or the left and, I don't know, Yeah, this is the right and the left, the sheep and the goats. Both of them, well, sheep and goats can't ask a question, but those on the right and the left, I mean, they are oblivious to the consequences. They ask the question really not aware that there are consequences for their behaviors. They just say, when did we see you? Both of them. So how good are your eyes? Where did you, where will you see Jesus? You see, when we say yes to Jesus, when Jesus is our Lord, we see the world through His eyes, through the eyes of love. When we say yes to Jesus, when Jesus is our Lord, we see Jesus in others, and we hope that others see Jesus in us. So being found among the broken, serving the needs of the broken, the poor, the marginalized, the outcast, then is not earning our salvation, but rather is evidence of Jesus living in us and through us in the world. When we see the needs of others, when others see Jesus in us, we're not earning anything. We're communicating that we belong to Christ, that He's important to us. You can't give love before you receive love. But once you've received love, you can give it, and then as you give it, you become it. The question, when did we see you, in my mind, is the pivotal point in this teaching of Jesus. You see, when we see Jesus in others, when we see Jesus in the broken, the outcast, the lovely, the haughty, the rich, the poor, when they see Jesus in us, we serve Jesus. So the question is not about what we do or have done. The question is, what have we done with Jesus? It's not, did I clothe the naked, or did I feed the hungry, or did I visit the prison? It's, what did I do with Jesus? Where do you see Jesus? And the answer is everywhere. He's in all of us. He's in people that aren't in this building or this room. Everyone's created in the image of God. No matter their background, no matter their skin color, no matter anything. Every human being is created in the image of God. And so the question is, where do you see Jesus? Do you see Jesus in everyone? And the challenge is to see Him in all people. And to let others see Him in me, in us. In the way we act, in the way we react, in the way we interact. You see, the church is not a social club. It's not an elite body of people. Rather, the church is to be an agent of God's blessing and love in the world. And the way we do that best is to tune our eyes to see Jesus in everyone, especially the broken, the marginalized, the outcast. And not just to see Him, but to serve Him there too. And we'll talk about that more next week with our core values, serving hands. One of the beautiful things about the way we do ministry here, in my mind, is that ministry is not just inside this building, but it's outside this building. And we engage in intentional places, and we've been turning soil in those intentional places for a long time. We're in 12 years at Pinehurst Elementary School. We're in 5 years at the Camden Community Garden. We're since 2008, so 11 years. We're in our 12th year of the homeless shelter. God's Kitchen, we've been doing longer than that because we did that before we moved to this facility. We've been doing that, I don't know, Belinda, probably more than we've been here 20 years. I think we were doing it before we got here. So we've probably been doing that the longest of any of those. So we do these things not because we're earning our salvation or we want to have a pat on the back or receive a crown. I'm not talking about the thing you color with. That's a crayon. A crown on your head. We do it because we see Jesus in all these places, and we want those places to see Jesus in us. Not so we can notch our Bibles and say, yep, we got another one. But so that we can share the love that we've experienced. And when we see Jesus, we will be loving people. I think that's what Jesus is teaching here. And one of the reasons that we do the work we do at Pinehurst and in the Camden Community Garden and the homeless shelter, God's Kitchen, those places is we need to be outside the walls of this place to see Jesus and to be among the broken. This week, I had the honor of taking on a new mentee. Bob will get to meet him. As you know, Bob and I have been mentoring two brothers for, 4 years. I think it's been a long time. And the oldest has finally decided that he doesn't want to be mentored anymore. In fact, he sees us and doesn't even act like he knows who we are. And that's okay. And the younger one has kind of struggled with just the two of us. And so I've been saying to Bob, we need to have somebody else. We need to take on another mentee. And we've been kicking it around. Do we start now? The year's almost over. Do we wait till next year? What do we do? And last week, the principal came to me and said, Pastor Martin, would you consider taking on another mentee? I said, absolutely. We'd love to. And in the process, between saying yes and getting there, our mentee changed because the little boy he had in mind got somebody that was one-on-one with him, and he gets the attention that he needs, which is really cool. And then Friday, when I went to school, I got to meet this new little boy who Emma has for reading. He's in another second grade class, but Emma has him for reading. And she said, Dad, you're just going to love this little boy. And it was just the most wonderful, sweet, cool experience. We played dominoes. He had never played dominoes. And on the way back to class, he was telling me how he had told his mom that he was getting a mentor and how excited he was. And the teacher told me when he walked back in class, he walked straight to her and gave her a hug and said, thank you. You see, brothers and sisters, we're to be found among the broken. And so I'm saying that to you because if you have even 45 minutes to give a week, there's somebody at a local elementary school, Pinehurst, or somewhere else, it doesn't matter, that has a need that you can meet. And all I ask is that you be consistent, because these kids don't need one more disappointment. That's one thing he asked me before I took him to his class. He said, are you going to be here next Friday? I said, yes, sir, I am. And you could just see the difference that it makes in their lives. It's one of the reasons why I like the work that we do at the Camden Community Garden, because it gets us out and among. You never know who's going to show up. And those that show up sometimes are people who have needs. And you get to meet people and you get to engage with them and you get to have an opportunity to serve the Jesus in them and to allow them to see the Jesus in you. So the question, brothers and sisters, this morning is, how good are your eyes? Do you see Jesus out there in the world? Do you see Jesus among the broken? Because at the core of joy are people who are always Jesus, with open arms, who realize that they are a beloved mess and can be found among the broken. That's what I've got this morning. How do you want to engage? We've already had some sharing time, but where do you want to push? Where do you want to say yay? What stories do you have? How do you want to engage with this?